Good morning. I want to welcome everyone to the Asian American Unity Coalition National Civic Leadership Forum keynote session this morning. Just as long time ago, Native Americans welcomed people from Europe to their land, Americans have held up the traditions to welcome immigrants from all over the globe. We are all immigrants to this country in different periods of time, except for the Native Americans who migrated long time ago and called this land their home. As immigrants, we all have contributed to this country in ways big and small. We have a long and deep-rooted history in the United States and have been involved in the infrastructure, economics, politics, arts, and the society of this great nation. The Asian American community has never been shy of voicing their opinion because they have truly embraced their role as Asian Americans. The Asian American communities are not here just to take a seat at the table. We are here to be part of the conversation. We have always been welcomed and will always welcome our new brothers and sisters because of the traditions of always welcoming others to our nation, because we all belong. Good morning. My name is Javeria Sayed. I am honored to be your MC for our conference. My first speaker is Dr. S.K. Low, who does not require any introduction. Dr. Low is the founder and the president of AAUC. Thank you so much for sharing your remarks with us. Next, we have Mr. S.K. Gupta, founder and managing director of Asian Corporate Directors Network Ascent Pinnacle. He successfully laid the groundwork for increasing the representation of Asian Americans in the U.S. public company boards. He has served on a wide range of boards of directors, including Sandia National Laboratories, Bay Area Council, San Jose Museum of Art, LEP, and APIA scholars. Mr. Gupta retired from Lockheed Martin as the Vice President of Operations for Space Systems. During his 28 years at Lockheed Martin, his assignments ranged from sea to Star Wars and space programs, including the world's first stealth ship, the Sea Shadow. Since retirement from Lockheed Martin, he has devoted his time to help Asian American professionals achieve their full potential. He has published and presented papers on leadership, business, and technical subjects. A graduate of Marine Engineering College in India and the University of Michigan, he also holds an MBA from Seattle University. He is a recipient of many honors and awards, including Lockheed Corporation's Robert E. Gross Award as Engineer Scientist of the Year. He received the National Asian American Engineer of the Year Award in 2004 and was recipient of the prestigious Ellis Island Medal of Honor in 2010. We have a short video with Mr. Gupta.
Good morning. I want to start by thanking AUC for organizing this National Civic Leadership Forum, The Power of Unity. Their call to action for full-scale civic engagement and to forge unity on our common goals among all diverse AAPI organizations resonates with where my mind and heart have been for the past 2 decades. I'm honored, flattered, and delighted to be invited to share some personal thoughts with you all. I also humbly ask for your assistance in helping other Asian Americans. We all need to help each other feel comfortable, for as one belongs, so do all of us. My wife always reminds me to speak slowly, as when I get excited and speak fast, my accent gets more pronounced. In any case, if you hear an accent, please remember that I didn't have one till I came to the US. I want to start my story from my graduation from an engineering college in India. Upon graduation, they wrote in my yearbook, "What's a guy like him doing in a place like this?" The implication was that I didn't belong. Fast forward 8 years later to University of Michigan, and I finally felt that I was somewhere that I belonged. The professors here tested me on what I had learned, versus in India, it was to discover what I hadn't learned. Both my wife and I felt that we had finally arrived in a country where we belonged. During my 48-year career, I changed industries, companies, functions, and geography, and I felt I belonged in my new country. And yet, like many of us, I too was told in the last few years to go back to your own country. So I too need affirmation after 41 years in the US that I too belong. During my working years, I discovered many barriers to my career. Some of the barriers were erected by others, and yet some that were erected by me personally, my background, and my culture. Years back, I was told that I didn't need to give Asians or Hispanics the same pay raises as others, as they lived simpler lives and didn't need as much money. Obviously, they hadn't met my wife. I've often heard that the reason Asians are not in the leadership ranks is because they don't want to be leaders. I couldn't help but point out that I didn't see the Asian countries being led by European and American white males. Same applies to businesses. Toyota in Japan, Lenovo in China, and Tata in India come to mind. When I came to the US in 1980, I was often introduced and referred to as an East Indian. Many times, folks, especially ladies, would say, I love your sing song accent. Back then, Indians were still a novelty in the US. After graduation, working in Washington, D.C., and later in Washington State, we started hearing ourselves being referred to as Indian Americans. We also learned the difference between an American Indian and an Indian American, noun or adjective. Once I became a citizen, I just wanted to be an American. I didn't want any adjectives, not East Asian, not Indian American, and not South Asian. Just good old plain American. But that I soon discovered was wishful thinking. It dawned on me that you are not who you think you are, but rather who others see you as. In my late 30s, I discovered that I was classified as a minority. Having grown up in an homogeneous India, this was a new and strangely uncomfortable label. Now, when I'm asked, what is your nationality? I reply, American. Then they say, no, where are you from? And I say, California. I know what they want. They want to know my heritage, but have they ever thought of asking a white American that question? America is often referred to as a melting pot. If that was true, we would all be seen as equal and not need any adjectives to describe each other. What the US of A has really become is better described as a stir-fry dish in which every ingredient retains its form and taste and yet collectively is better or can be better than its parts. I was once told by my boss that I would never be promoted to vice president as I was not an alpha male. I thought about it and then asked him that if I'm not an alpha male, what am I? After some deliberation, the learned gentleman, a PhD from Purdue, said that I was a highly competent beta male. I would submit that description. A highly competent beta male applies to most Asians. Given his feedback, I learned a few new skills and identified the 3 cultural behaviors that I had to change. And I refer to them as the 3 rules that I had to learn. Although these rules were specifically for me, I would submit that they apply to many first-generation Asian Americans. Rule number 1, the only person in charge of a career is me. Speak up. We were taught in our native countries in Asia to work hard, work smart, and if it is meant to be, it will be. It is kismet, karma, fate, but not in the US of A. Here we need to learn that you have to drive your own career. You need to find your next assignment, promotion, or training. I learned to speak up. Rule number 2, the best way of making sure that you don't get something is by not asking for it. So ask. In other words, if you want something, a promotion, ask for it. However, Asians don't like to ask. We prefer to be asked. Even if we were starving, we would have to decline any offer of food at least twice before we could hesitantly say yes the 3rd time. Now in Asian countries, the offerer also knows that you're going to decline it twice, so they ask you the 3rd time. What happens in the US? How many times have we ever been asked twice? I learned to ask versus waiting to be asked. Rule number 3, pull is stronger than push, but no one pulls someone who's not pushing themselves. Raise your hand. In Asia, there are many phrases that are used to drive behavior. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down, Chinese. The bird that doesn't hide itself gets shot, Japanese. Don't sing your own praises like a parrot, my own mom in India. We were taught in Asia that being pushy is rude, and yet in this country, we recognize and reward the alpha male. I was told by an HR executive that Asian Americans don't want to be leaders as they are not knocking down his door to get promoted. We can't wait to be pulled up. We need to push ourselves to get there. I had discovered my bamboo ceiling, but overcome it. I hope that, like me, we all see the bamboo ceiling not as a barrier, but as a hurdle, an opportunity to take in our stride. The awakening of my Asian American identity happened around 2003. I had transferred back to a facility in California after over 6 years in Maryland and Colorado. I left here as a junior executive and returned as a senior one. Many of my previous colleagues and friends were still around. When they would see me, they would say, "Congratulations, one of us made it," or words to that effect. Initially, I honestly didn't get what they meant by "one of us made it." They were of different Asian heritages: Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos, Koreans, Indians, etc. So I sat down with my colleague and friend, the VP of Human Resources, to seek to understand. Dave was blunt. "Have you looked around yourself?" he asked. "You're the only vice president of Asian descent in this entire division of roughly 20,000 employees." He told me that whether I liked it or not, I was a role model for all Asian American employees. Dave helped me understand that although 13% of the local employee population at that time was of Asian heritage, less than 5% were in supervisory or management positions. This was an eye-opener for me. For decades, I was focused on my personal career: work hard, work smart, leverage opportunities, and progress. Now I was seeing myself as a member of a population that I had not even realized that I belonged to. I hosted a meeting of all Asian American supervisors and managers. No non-Asians were allowed. Planned for an hour, it lasted for over two. For the first time, many shared their experiences with racial prejudices, denied opportunities, and yes, lack of role models. There was emotion as well as a few tears. For the first time in their career, they had a safe environment to voice their frustrations. I was both sad and mad at listening to the stories. When a corporation's chairman and CEO formed the Chairman's Diversity Council, the membership was well thought out. Women, African Americans, Hispanics, and Asian Americans were all included as council members. However, the three Asian American members were further subdivided by Filipino, Chinese, and Indian. We were not seen as one. The three of us soon concluded that we needed to speak with one voice as Asian Americans. My personal belief moved from not understanding the strength and value of all Asians being seen as one to now driving for them all to be seen as one. A very senior executive told me that as Asian Americans are not homogeneous, the corporation can't do much to assist them. My response: our languages may be different, but our cultural norms and values are the same. AAUC's vision is to gain equal citizenship for all AAPI to achieve our collective American dreams. We need to gather all Asian Americans together and speak with one voice that loudly proclaims we belong in this country. There is strength in numbers. It was the Immigration Act of 1965 that allowed us to emigrate legally to the US. At that time, there were only 800,000 Asians in this country. Today, there are over 20 million of us. Collectively, we, the Asian Americans, are just over 7% of the US population. However, the largest single group, people of Chinese heritage, is barely over 1%. Small numbers, even though we are growing rapidly. If we don't speak up as the 7%ers, no one will hear the voice of the 1%ers. This will only happen if the leaders and the boards of all the hundreds of different Asian American groups are willing to work together. My personal experience says that the biggest hurdle is our egos. We are willing to work together, but only if we lead and others follow us. This must change. We can't compete with each other and pull each other down like crabs. We must leverage each other to achieve our full potential and help close the opportunity gap for others. It is great to see the many different member organizations of AAUC, but where are the rest? Why are they not all members of the Unity Coalition? Let's work together to bring everyone to the Unity Coalition. Reminds me of an old story from the epic Mahabharata. There were 5 brothers called Pandavas who constantly competed with each other. One day, the guru gave them each a wooden stake to break. They all broke their sticks easily. He then took 5 sticks and tied them together, and then none of them could break the bunch. The simple moral of the story is that individually we may feel challenged, but collectively no one can break us. Let's look around us and draw strength from each other's success. To quote President Obama, our stories are singular, but our destiny is shared. It has been a long journey for me personally, but when an unknown Asian American recognizes you on the subway and quotes back to you what you said at a conference 5 or 6 years ago, you know that the journey was worth taking. If just one of my thoughts helps one of you move up in the corporate world, it will be nirvana for me. I'm proud to have been born in India, but I'm privileged to live in the US, where opportunities have no limits. From an Indian to an East Indian to an Indian American to a South Asian, and now proud to be an Asian American. And as we learn from the 5 Pandavas, there is strength in unity. We all belong. Thank you all.